The sky wasn't just dark, it was gone. One moment, the city lights reflected against a familiar star-dusted canvas. The next, a shadow fell. A void that didn't just block the stars, but seemed to swallow them whole. They arrived in silence. These colossal shapes hanging in the night sky like obsidian mountains torn from some impossible landscape. No thunderous roar, no grand announcement. Just a sudden, suffocating presence that blotted out the moon and draped our world in an unnatural twilight. Down below, the city that never sleeps fell into a stunned, breathless hush. Cars sat abandoned, their lights painting lonely streaks on empty asphalt. The usual symphony of sirens and life was replaced by a collective silent gasp. We just stared, necks craned, minds refusing to process the sheer scale of what floated above us. They weren't just ships, they were monoliths. City-sized declarations that we were no longer alone, and perhaps no longer in charge. The silence was the most terrifying part. It was a patient, predatory silence, the kind that precedes a storm you know you won't survive. Every light in every building seemed to dim in their presence, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. That first night, we weren't a civilization of billions. We were just children in the dark, staring up at the new gods who had just moved in overhead. Then came the light. It wasn't the warm, reassuring glow of our own creation. This was a cold, analytical green. Beams, thick as ancient trees, descended from the bellies of the silent behemoths. They moved with a slow, deliberate purpose, sweeping across the faces of our tallest skyscrapers, turning glass and steel into a ghostly emerald. The light didn't just illuminate, it felt like it was reading us, dissecting our world from a distance. It painted our deserted streets, tracing the paths we once walked, the avenues where we lived and loved. There was an unnerving intelligence to it. It wasn't a random searchlight. It was a scan, a cataloging. Each sweep felt like a violation, as if our collective history, our greatest achievements, and our most private moments were being downloaded and judged. The beams would linger on a rooftop garden, then glide down to inspect an empty playground, the swings swaying gently in the manufactured wind. It was a quiet, methodical invasion of our space, our very identity. We watched from behind drawn curtains and cracked doorways, feeling like specimens under a cosmic microscope. The green light was a silent question being asked of our entire existence, and we had no idea what the right answer was. We could only watch as it peeled back the layers of our world, one silent, eerie scan at a time. Inside the skeletal remains of what was once an office building, the world was a mosaic of shattered glass and moonlight filtered through dust. The air was thick with the smell of concrete and fear, and there, tucked behind the jagged frame of a blown-out window, was a small boy, Ease. His name was Leo. He wasn't crying. The time for tears had passed, lost somewhere between the first shadow and the first scream. Now there was only a tense, focused survival. His small hands were clenched, knuckles white, pressed against the cold concrete of the windowsill. He breathed in shallow, controlled sips, trying to make himself as small, as invisible as the dust motes dancing in the faint light. Outside, the green beams continued their relentless survey, but in here, it was a world of shadows. He was a ghost in his own city, a silent witness to its fall. He'd been separated from his family in the initial chaos, a frantic scramble of bodies and noise. Now, the silence was his only companion, a heavy blanket he pulled tight around himself. He peeked over the edge of the broken window, his eyes wide, trying to understand the geometry of this new, terrifying world. Each distant rumble, each flicker of alien light, sent a tremor through his small frame, but he held his ground. He was a cornered animal, a child forced to become a soldier in a war he couldn't comprehend, hiding in the ruins and waiting for something, anything, to change. And then it did. A new light appeared, but this one was different. It wasn't the cold, scanning green. It was a soft, internal glow, emanating from a figure that materialized in the doorway of the ruined office. The figure was tall, impossibly slender, with limbs that moved with a liquid grace that defied physics. It wasn't monstrous, not in the way Leo's nightmares had imagined. It was elegant, ethereal. Its skin, if you could call it that, shimmered with a faint, pulsating luminescence, a soft white gold that pushed back the oppressive shadows. Leo froze, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He was discovered. The being took a step forward, its feet making no sound on the debris-strewn floor. It tilted its head, a gesture of curiosity that was so profoundly, unexpectedly, gentle. It had no discernible face, just a smooth, glowing surface. And yet Leo felt its gaze. He felt it lock on to him, a connection that bypassed sight, that bypassed language. There was no menace, no threat. Instead, he felt a wave of something else: sadness, regret, deep ancient curiosity. The alien raised a long, delicate hand, its fingers glowing brighter. In that moment, the universe shrank to the space between them. The boy in the ruins and the visitor from the stars. Their eyes are what served as eyes met, and a silent, profound conversation began. An exchange of emotion so intense it left Leo breathless. It was a connection, a fragile bridge built across an impossible chasm of fear and destruction. The moment stretched, timeless, and then shattered. The being retracted its hand, the soft glow dimming, and with a final, lingering sense of a shared secret, it dissolved back into the shadows from which it came. Leo was alone again, but the air had changed. The suffocating fear had been replaced by a bewildering mix of awe and sorrow. He stood up, his small legs unsteady, and dared to look out the window again. The city below was a masterpiece of destruction. The scale of it was breathtaking. The alien ships, still silent, cast long, dramatic shadows that sliced through the urban landscape, creating stark contrasts of light and dark. A skyscraper leaned against its neighbor like a tired giant, its metallic skin peeled back to reveal its inner skeleton. Streets were cracked and buckled, craters gaping where familiar landmarks once stood. But it wasn't just chaos. There was a horrifying artistry to it all. The destruction felt precise, almost surgical. Smoke and dust rose in slow, mournful plumes, catching the eerie green light and creating a scene that was both terrifying and tragically beautiful. It was the aftermath, the beginning of a new chapter written in rubble and starlight. This wasn't just an attack. It was a terraforming of the human soul. The world he knew was gone, replaced by this stark, dramatic, and alien vista. And as Leo stared out at the remade world, he clutched the memory of that glowing hand, that silent connection, the only piece of hope in the heart of the invasion. Thanks for watching. If this story captured your imagination, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more.